Hey guys, so I've just been busy and I haven't had time to make a lot of videos and things like that. And so rather than come up with 1,000 excuses as to why I can't record videos, I'm just gonna, just kind of go back to recording these kind of more basic videos where there's not, um, fancy lighting, fancy camera work because whenever I would set up the camera, set this up, set that up, wipe the SD card, insert the SD card, record the video, record the sound separately, merge the two together in a video editor, and then post them to YouTube. It took forever, absolutely forever. I just kind of got like to the point to where it's like, okay, I'm just gonna start. I'm just gonna start recording them. And just trying not to be so OCD and perfectionist about the entire thing. Just to give you an idea, I understand my shirt is green and that the wall is green and that is incredibly annoying. As soon as I sat down here, I realized how annoying it was on camera and wanted to do something about it, but also just, understanding that life is life, and just kind of moving along anyway. But quite a few things have come up, quite a few things that I've wanted to make videos about. And I know I haven't posted to this channel in a long time. And that's just been because I have veered off my own path accidentally. And as you guys know, whenever you veer off of what God wants for you in your life, um, life gets hard. And so that is what has happened to me, is that I had kind of veered off and really kind of focused more on, making money and things like that. And life got hard. So I took a week to kind of go back and just kind of realign myself to what God wants for me and to what I feel God wants for me in my life. Um, and and yeah, so I feel much better. But yeah, it is always kind of funny how whenever you do get focused on the wrong things, how God is pouring out his blessings, you start focusing on the wrong things, and God's just like, oop. And then you're just like, oh, the water is running out. What's going on? But I wanted to talk about just a little bit about I don't want to make this channel all about, because in the past I have made this channel kind of about trying to expose Christianity, look at the hurt it does for people, look at the things it does to people. And, the reality of the situation is that if you've found this video, then God wants you to watch this video. Whether you agree with that or not, it doesn't matter, because I know where my heart lies, I know where my convictions lie, and I know that in my alignment with God, that is where everything is possible. Whenever I try to do things on my own and I allow my human to try to do things, things become 1,000 times harder, as my last 2 months have been. So, I very much do find alignment in being here and kind of supporting people who have gone through a lot of hurt and things like that in their lives. But my perfectionist tendencies often say that this video is not good enough, that video is not good enough, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to have better lighting. I would record a video, deem it to not be good enough, and then say, okay, this is not a good video, I'm tossing it and just not posting it, and that happened 1,000 times just because of my perfectionist tendencies. So what I wanted to start off with is just where I was led, and I want people to understand, because whenever I tell people where I was led they always get extremely scared. They always say, you're being led by demons. You're being led by whatever. Okay, that's not the case. And I've seen people that have been led by demons, and I decided, you know what? Why not? Let's make a video about demons. Let's talk about dark energy. Let's talk about demons. Let's talk about Satan and all of that stuff, right? I had a demon in me since childhood. And I call it a demon because it was not an angel. I call it a demon because it wasn't an angel. But at the same time, it was this very, very strong, dark presence in my life. And I didn't understand how it stuck to me for so many years. But as you guys know, I grew up independent fundamental Baptist, Bible-believing, literalist translation of the Bible. So, when the Bible says that locusts will come out of the earth, the belief was there will literally be locusts coming from the earth. And of course, we've seen all kind of like the locust raids and all sorts of things. So, there's always all sorts of fluctuations. One of the biggest things now is that since everybody on the planet can now communicate with each other, it is very much becoming a lot like politics, where there is always evidence to support your story, right? But one thing to keep in mind is that while the Christian prophecies are coming to place, native prophecies are also coming to place. The Hopi prophecies are also coming to place. The natives in Alaska, where I was living, the prophecies were coming to place about the white raven, and all of these native tribes. They all have their prophecies, and they're all coming to place, right? And so it is not to say that, Christianity is the only one true way, but it is to say that there is clearly one true God. There is clearly one true creator in this entire universe that speaks to everybody, and there are obviously dark forces and things like that. And so that's kind of what I wanted to make this video about, is my personal experience with demons and dark entities and things like that. And it comes down to the purity of your soul. It comes down to the purity of your being, how in Christianity, the idea is to be like Christ, right? How can you be like Christ when one political party loses, that the political party who won ridicules, scoffs at, mocks? I mean, just look at the way, in the United States, look at the way Republicans talk about Democrats. You can be a Christian, you can go to church for years, and if you're a Republican, tell me about how you feel about transgender folks. You will immediately spew so much hate, And if you're a Democrat, tell me about how you feel about... tells you how much I know about kind of the Republican main stances. I grew up Republican. My dad was this insane, intense Republican guy, ultra conservative. And for a while afterwards, I became libertarian, kind of before I started going down my path. But anyways, one of the crazy things that Republicans believe, whatever their crazy stuff. Oh, like the deportations. Okay, that's a perfect example, right? If you're a Democrat and you look at the deportations, right? what would you say about the Republicans? Because I know what you're saying about Donald Trump, right? And on the other side, Donald Trumpers, I know what you're saying about everybody else who doesn't support the guy, And so it's like there is so much two-facedness that's going on in the world. And so the idea that the Christians want to be like Christ, you can't be like Christ when you're pointing your finger and telling somebody that they are stupid, they are idiots, they are dumb, that you can't, that's just not it. Everybody knows, inherently, deep down that that's not it. That is not the way to be like Christ. Right now, did Christ call out the Pharisees? Of course he called out the Pharisees, because the Pharisees were trying to get people to basically control the people through religion. And so there's that line of understanding. There's that line of understanding where this is control and this is just stuff that doesn't matter. Right? Jesus said, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and to give unto God what is God. Jesus did not care about your political affiliation. Jesus did not care about your personal finances. Jesus did not care about what you had in this life, about whether or not you were successful or not, or whether or not you found your perfect spouse or not, or whether or not you found what's coming across YouTube a lot, your kingdom spouse. Jesus didn't care about those things. Jesus cared about your soul. Jesus cared about your relationships. How do you treat other people? How do you love other people, right? That's all that Jesus came to teach. And so it's incredibly hypocritical when you see, Christians on both sides hating each other, warring with each other, when they just don't understand the unity. We are all Christian, right? And even, quite frankly, Christians can't agree on that, right? You have Orthodoxy, then you have Catholicism, then you have Mormons, and you have Baptists and Pentecostals, and you have Calvinists and Lutherans, and then you go on and on and on and on and on, because humans love separation. We love being separated from God. That is our forte. If we had one thing that we could get a big first place trophy for, it would be in finding ways to separate ourselves from everybody and from God, right? Because that's what we do. We say, I read this book, and I found in this verse it says this, so the church that I go to doesn't abide by this rule, so I'm going to go and start my own church. And then somebody else is like, really? Because I read that, but I also read this part, and this part just says something completely different, so I'm going to go and start my own church. And then another church is like, well, you read that out of context. If you would have read the entirety of that letter that Paul wrote, you would have clearly seen that this is not what Paul was saying. And so then there's another religion started. And then you have other people who say, well, if you look at Paul's teachings don't align with Jesus's teachings. And so this is where we're taking it. And it's just like, this book has led to more separation than the initial fall of man, when we separated from God into this planet, and we're still separating. There are still more and more, sects of Christianity being created every day because we love separation. That is why we are in the crap storm that we've created for ourselves, is because we keep trying to say, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right, and I'm going to go off and do my own thing, and I'm going to be the one who gets to heaven, and you're going to burn in hell. I know for me, in my life, independent fundamental Baptists, we used to look at Pentecostals and say, that's kind of a sketchy game. Catholics, y'all were going to hell. Orthodox, going to hell. Jewish, going to hell. Just everybody else, right? If you weren't a part of our church or our specific beliefs, you were immediately going to burn in hell. And it was the same with Pentecostal. My ex-wife was Pentecostal. And you just hear all the insults just being hailed at thrown at the Baptists. And they threw so many insults at me about, I grew up Baptist, and they made jokes at me. They were throwing insults at me, even though I wasn't Baptist. I didn't necessarily believe in the Baptist theology of things. They were still hailing insults at me because I was born Baptist, or used to be Baptist. And it's just like, you love separation. You love being separate from God. You absolutely love the drama. You love standing in your little section of the Bible, not reading the entire thing, first of all, or the other bits and pieces that we found recently, but just staying in this little tiny section of it and saying, you guys suck. I've got it right and y'all suck, so y'all gonna burn? What is that? Like, just what is that, right? So, anyways, not to make this a rant off of that, but that's essentially what's going on, and what's becoming just such a heart-wrenching thing. The planet's being torn apart right now. Right now is not the time to stand in our pride and say, I'm right, you are wrong. The time is to look to God and say, God, I'm so happy to be here, and I devote myself completely to you, no matter where you take me. No matter where you take me, considering the amount of judgment that I get on this channel, on my path, right? Knowing full well that my intentions are purely to align with God, and have been such ever since my divorce. Since my divorce, I completely gave my life to God. And to the point to where I even went to a pastor and asked him to be anointed. I wanted purely to align with God and nothing else. But I get a lot of hate and I get a lot of judgments because I've stepped out of what is accepted. I've stepped out of what is considered true for them. Well, guess what? There's so many truths now, aren't there? Because what is true to one person is not true to another person, right? To live in America and to be, this is going to be a really bad example, but it's just the best one that I can think of right now. To live in America and to be born in South Texas as a Hispanic, your understanding of racism is going to be completely different of a Hispanic who lives in Minnesota. Right? Exact same people, completely different experiences of what's true, right? The Hispanic in South Texas can say, oh, right there on the border with Mexico, can say, oh, racism is actually not that big of a deal here. It's just racism in America is just not a thing. Whereas the Hispanic in Alaska or the Hispanic in Minnesota may say, oh no, actually, in general, there is still a lot of racism happening, and it's something that we need to work on. And so when the two Hispanics come together, one says racism's not a problem, the other one says racism is still something that occurs. And so then you have these two people of differing opinions, when the reality is, in both situations, they're right. So it is funny to see that dynamic, but right now, with everything going on, is not the time to start pointing fingers. It's not the time to start saying, oh, he's going to hell, he's going to heaven, and we need to hurry up and gather up all of these lost souls. There are no lost souls. There are no lost souls. And I know this is where I'm going to lose a lot of you. But there are no lost souls. If you look at one of the beautiful examples that I can think of is the Hopi natives in Arizona. I just got back from Arizona, so it's fresh on my mind. The Hopi natives, they have had history on that land for I don't even know how many years, 20,000 years, whatever it's been, who knows. But they have had verbal tradition, because they're not like Europeans. They don't write things down into scrolls and hold on to them for decades. It's all verbal tradition. And so their verbal tradition, they have many times when the world started over. When the world started over because of fire, because of a flood, because of whatever, and it's like, in the Christian view of things, there was only Noah on the planet. And Noah was the only surviving human being. Well, the Hopi, they have their own flood myth, right? of this massive flood that covered the planet and how God came down and saved them and took them underground, and how they kept them safe throughout the entire situation, and then they were eventually brought back out whenever it was safe to return. And in the eastern part of the world, the Buddhists have the same. They have the same. They have the same myths of how God came down and saved a couple of them, and the righteous ones, right? How God saved them, and from there they were able to repopulate. Instead of seeing that with an open mind and saying, okay, God clearly exists. One, God clearly cares about us enough to save us from a flood. Two, clearly there was a flood. Three, and God may not be only in my specific religion, because the Buddhists could take the exact same thing and say, oh, we have the flood myth. Here is our evidence to support our religious beliefs, so our religion is right, right? Hindus could do the same thing because they also have a flood myth. The Hopi could do the same thing if they wanted to. The Hopi could say, no, our myth is the only thing that is true and everybody else is false. But Christianity does that, and they do that to an intense degree. And so the thing to understand there in that is just whenever I went through kind of my restructuring of things, after my divorce, I really was praying every day and fighting demons. Okay, let's go ahead and get on to the demonic track of things. But I genuinely was praying and fighting demons. But something that I had realized, or I hadn't realized at the time, is that the demons that I was fighting while I was in the midst of all the craziness going on with my divorce were the same demons that I had been dealing with since childhood. Now, how is that? Because I had gone to so many deliverances as a child. I had gone to so many, church camps and youth camps, and I had gone to so many places where they had prayed on me to remove any sort of negative beings and to remove any sort of demons from my life and all this kind of stuff. And, nothing ever worked. It was like I'm constantly tormented. And the reason why is because my beliefs. I secretly, even though I was Christian, even though I was, and I don't want to call out a family member, but there is a person in my family who is incredibly racist. She goes to church all the time. She goes every Sunday. She goes every Thursday. She goes every Friday. She goes every Wednesday, every Monday, every Tuesday. She goes to church every single day, and I've never met a woman who is more prejudiced in my life. But, her thing is, oh, well, there's, God is going to save them, and that's okay. I just don't like them. And I don't have to like them because, I'm not Jesus. I'm not perfect. So it's okay for me to be imperfect. And it's okay for me to hold on to these prejudices because I'm not God and I am imperfect. And so as long as God forgives me, that's like the famous quote, God forgive me, Oh, let me shoot up this methamphetamine. Oh, God forgive me, in the process of shooting up the methamphetamine. Oh, while I'm, smoking the devil's lettuce. Oh, God forgive me while I do this. Or while I'm drinking up a storm and throwing alcohol into my system. Oh, God forgive me. Or while I'm drinking copious amounts of caffeine and damaging my body. Oh, God forgive me as I throw back this caffeine. Or while I'm eating enormous amounts of food and absolutely gluttoning myself. Oh, God forgive me as I shove this cake into my face. That is not sincerity. That's not sincerity. And that's also not authenticity. And that's not being genuine, which is what doesn't align with Jesus, as we all know, right? So, whenever I was going through Christianity, and I say going through Christianity because I genuinely was devoted, even though many people in the comments are going to disagree. And that's fine. But it used to bother me. I used to have guys in the comments pop up and say that I obviously was never a Christian. And that used to genuinely bother me until I had the realization that Christians can't even agree on what's going on in Christianity. That's the dang truth. That's why you have so much separation in Christianity. And even within the church, you have people that believe certain things and people that don't believe certain things. And churches are just masses of people that, for the most part, their beliefs align. If you go back and you go for detail and you genuinely ask every individual person, what is your specific belief on this specific issue, you will find that not everybody in a church agrees. And some people will say things that will make others absolutely furious. I heard one video online how this guy who was arguing for the Bible against some dude. Oh, that's cool. It happens every now and then. It's a cool noise that kind of like shoots across the sky at my house. It's pretty cool. It's gone now. But it's interesting because, what is that? I always have troubles identifying the noises out here. I don't know if that's my neighbor with his airplane, because I do have a neighbor with an airplane that just flies around. I think that's what it is. I think he's just out on his plane. Anyways, not to get distracted, but yeah, it's like, you guys can't even agree amongst yourselves what is true. This one guy who was famously kind of rewarded for defending Christianity to this guy with a whole bunch of New Age beliefs and stuff. His belief in the book of Genesis was that there was death in the Garden of Eden, and that there was predation in the Garden of Eden, and that lions were killing animals to eat in the Garden of Eden. And that was his firm belief. Now, mind you, he had just gotten all of the praise of all of the Christians for defending the Bible and defending Christianity against this guy. And his beliefs don't even align with the majority of Christians, because I would say the majority of Christians believed that that in the Garden of Eden, it was this utopian, there is no death. That is all what is kind of understood. But you can't even agree on that. And so that's why I've learned to not take so much offense to when you guys tell me I'm on the wrong path, because as an independent fundamental Baptist, I would have told you were on the wrong path. So it's just, it's just how the religion works. But anyways, I didn't actually start to perceive dark entities and beings leaving my body until I had started going down the spiritual path of finding my own way to God. And shock and surprise, on the spiritual path of finding my own way to God, it is easy to generalize, is it not? We can say, I forgive everybody who's ever hurt me. I want you to practice that. Say that. I forgive everybody who's ever hurt me. Oh, what a lovely saying. But sit down, get quiet, and sit in peace and say that. I forgive everybody who's ever hurt me. And just let your mind take you to the things that really hurt, that really made you mad, that really just left a scar on your body so intense that you vowed in your heart to never forgive them. Because it's easy to say that vast general statement, I forgive everybody. In my life, I forgave everyone, but I didn't. And so I would ask God at night, if there's anything that I need to work on, show me tonight as I sleep. And I would have dreams of things that had happened in my life. I would have dreams of reliving moments in my life. I would have dreams where people would be themselves, their toxic selves in the dream to me, in the same way that it had happened to me, whether it was in childhood or in adulthood or years prior or whatever. And I would wake up every morning just mad because I was asking God, I want to be close to you. You know, the prayer that I prayed is, I want to touch you. I want to touch you. Please let me be the one to be able to touch you, you know. And it was like, oh, you want to touch me? Well, you have all this crap, you know, and you need to forgive your mom for this. Oh, I don't want to forgive my mom. I'd wake up in the morning all angry and mad and upset, and I can't do this. I can't believe what they did to me. I can't do this, all this kind of stuff. And after a couple of days, I'd chill down, I'd sit down, and I would first forgive my mom, which you know what that actually means is like, oh, we're saying the words, but we don't actually mean it. I would forgive my mom. And then I would remember the situation and I'd get pissed again. I'd get, oh, I don't like that. Oh, I'd get angry again. And it was because I didn't actually forgive my mom, right? For that specific situation, because I had generally, I forgive you, Mom, for everything you'd ever done. But then I'd remember specific instances and I could not let them go. I'd be so pissed off. And it took me a long time. And when I say it took me a long time, it was about a year and a half of forgiving is how long it took me to forgive everything and everyone. And in that time, you know, while I was going to church, I was being bothered by demons. Whenever I was going through my divorce, I was being bothered by demons. Whenever I was a choir boy, I was being bothered by demons. And the answer that I would get from people is, well, you're under demonic attack because there's something that you're doing that Satan doesn't like. And so this is the reason why you're under demonic attack, is because, you know, you're doing the right thing, you're doing the Christian thing, and the devil doesn't like that. And so that's the reason why you're being attacked. That's not the reason why I was being attacked. I was being attacked because I was the one allowing myself to be attacked. I was being attacked because I was refusing to forgive. I was telling myself I was a good Christian boy, and then I would go to church and look at my mom with disdain. There's the opening. You know, it doesn't matter. There's the opening. You've created the opening. You look at your father with disdain. There's the opening. You look at the pastor with distaste. There's the opening. Maybe you sit in the chairs and you are upset because when the church made the decision to buy new chairs, they didn't pick the chairs that you liked. There's the opening. We create our own pathways to be attacked by demons. We're not doing anything right to be attacked by demons. Our own inner problems, our own inner strongholds are what's keeping us open to being attacked by demons and to being attacked by dark energies. You know, even in my current life, I had started to really try to pursue, you know, connection with God, and I would get attacked again. And then the same stories would come up, right? I must be getting attacked because I'm going in the right direction, right? Which for you guys, for some of you guys, I can already see it. How can this guy be demonically attacked? He's going the wrong way, you know? So at the end of the day, dark energy is dark energy. You know, darkness is darkness. Evil is evil, right? And it's just to say that, you know, if you, I'm trying to think of like the best way to word this, but it doesn't matter what faith you come from. When you hold on to hate, when you hold on to unforgiveness, when you hold on to instances that you can't let go of, whether it be from your ex-wife, whether it be from your first ex-wife, your second ex-wife, your third ex-wife, from your mother, from a friend in school, from whatever, whatever it may be from, that is your opening. We allow these beings to come into our lives. We genuinely do. Because every time we hold on to something, anytime we hold on to any sort of hate, that's the portal. I'm never going to forgive my mom. Perfect. Well, you're never going to be at peace. Right? I'm never going to forgive my parents. Perfect. You'll never be at peace. That's the hole that we can use to slip right in. Right? When I started going down my 1.5 years of forgiveness that I did not want to go down. I did not want to go down that road, but it was pretty clear. John, if you want to take me serious, if you want to pursue me, this is what you have to do. Stop being hateful. Stop holding on to your hatred. Stop holding on to your unforgiveness. And these moments that I had forgotten about, these things that I had forgotten, these feelings that I had forgotten about, started coming to the surface because I was asking for them to be brought to the surface, so that I could forgive them, and let go of them, and so that the love of God could take that place in me that was once a stronghold. Right? As I started to do that, I genuinely started to become lighter. And when I became lighter, I started having spiritual experiences of dark energies leaving me. And this is why when people tell me that I'm on a demonic path, it's like, I can't tell it to you. Because you yourself, depending on who you are, obviously, right? Not everybody's going to be the same, but you yourself probably have dark energies in your life that are dictating your life. One time I had made this decision to go with my friends to Cancun. I knew it was a wrong decision. I didn't want to go to Cancun because that is, if you wanted to use the Christian terminology, it is the devil's playground, just like Las Vegas, right? And I had told myself, no, I can hold it. I can stand my ground, all this kind of stuff. Well, I didn't, and I failed. And I was feeling it. I was in my feelings. I was so disappointed. I was full of shame. I can't believe I did this. I can't believe I had made the stupid decisions. I can't believe I had allowed myself to get pushed into peer pressure. I knew that I was putting myself in a position that I didn't want to be put into. I had an experience where at the airport, they were selling crosses. And the cross had a picture of Mother Mary on it. Now, that's great for the Catholics, but for all the Protestants, you'll be angry because Mother Mary doesn't save, right? But there was a cross with a picture of Mother Mary on it. And while I was there in Cancun, I had picked up that cross with Mother Mary on it. And immediately I felt so many energies leaving me that I had just picked up. If you go hang out in the devil's playground, they're hanging out there. That's their hangout. That's where they like to hang out. It doesn't matter if you go there and you hold your light. It doesn't matter. What are you doing there? And when I picked up that cross, I felt just all of these energies just leaving me. And it was just like, I held on to that cross and I held on to Mary. And I was just like, oh, I can't believe I did the stupid things that I did this weekend. And I just felt so much lighter, And then I kind of went on my way. I put the cross back. I wasn't going to buy it because they wanted like $60 for it. And I kind of went on my way. But the Christians tend to think that, oh, it's okay. I've got the Bible. As long as I've got the Bible, I've got the Bible. As long as I've got the Bible, I'm safe. No, you're not. As long as I go to church on Sunday, I'm safe. No, you're not. As long as you're holding on to any impurity, you're not safe. This is a big thing amongst Christian men, is addiction to pornography, is it not? Is the temptation with lust. That's your portal. Is it not true? Do you not feel that? You know when you hear truth because it resonates and it hurts sometimes. And it's the same with women. You might have had that boyfriend that cheated on you. I can forgive him, but I can never bless him. Well, you're still holding on then. I can forgive him, but I'm never letting go. I'm never going to trust him again. Well, okay, I'll give you that. Never trust him again. Okay, that's not a problem, There's a difference between holding on to something and then just being smart about stuff. But, I would have conversations with my dad. My dad's been married 3 times. My dad's been married 3 times. And he's got so many problems in his current marriage. But they go to church. They pray them away. Jesus save us. Jesus save us. At one point, are you going to at least try to save yourself? I couldn't imagine being Jesus. And you have all these kids stuck in the mud. And you pull one out of the mud and they jump right back in. You pull one out and they jump right back in. You pull one out and they jump right back in. And so I'm sure Jesus at a certain point says, look, you're the one jumping in the mud. You're the one doing this to yourself. And then you cry even more, God, I'm losing my house. I'm losing the car. Well, who told you to take that trip? Who told you to go eat out at Cane's every week? Who told you to go spend all this money or to not appreciate your work or to talk bad about your boss or to talk bad about your job? Who told you to do that? And so that's the thing. It's like I see it so many times with all Christians is that they, especially the ones who are going through a lot of stuff, they beg Jesus, just like I beg Jesus, to pull me out of the mud. And he would. He'd be like, okay, John, for the 7,000th time, I'm going to pull you out of the mud. You're out of the mud. I'm going to let go. Why are you going back into the mud? Jesus, help me. Jesus, save me. Okay, John, here we go. Give me your hand. Back out of the mud. Okay, now you're out of the mud. Where are you going? What are you doing? Why did you do that? And then we say, God, why aren't you helping me? God, why aren't you improving my situation? And God is sitting there like, why are you doing this to yourself? Why do you think that I'm the one who is doing this to you? Why do you think that I'm the one who's trying to teach you something when you're clearly doing this to yourself? Why is it you keep going back to that person? When you know that they are abusing you, when you know that they are stealing from you, when you know that they are cheating on you, when you know that they're sneaking around your back and talking to other people and being unfaithful, why do you keep going back to that person? You ask for help. I pull you out of the mud. I clean you off, and you jump headfirst in. Why? And so, I'm sure God just says, you know what? Hang out in the mud for a little bit. You seem to love it so much. I'll wait for you to come to me. And when I made that trip of stepping out of the mud to go to God myself, there were points where it was, okay, it's time to clean you off. Now you've gotten out of the mud, but you're still muddy. Let's get you cleaned off. And I would have these experiences lying in bed at night of literally these dark beings being forced out of my body and being forced to go elsewhere. I would literally have these intense, I'm not going to call them dreams because I know what they were, but you guys would probably like, oh my God. I would literally be in my spirit and I would see all the beings around me And I know that I was the one who was bringing them there. You're the one who's doing this to yourself. I don't know how to tell this to you, because the church is going to tell you to just pray to Jesus and have Jesus pull you out of the mud again. Jesus is tired of it, I'm sure. Some of you guys, especially with me, I mean, I bet the guy has just the biggest forearms of like constantly hauling out people, Of course, I'm just kind of being sarcastic at this point, but still, what financial situations are you going through? Why is it that you're telling yourself that a church paying you less than minimum wage is okay? It's okay because I'm doing this in the name of God. Is it really okay to be treated unfairly? Is it really okay to be exploited of your faith, that you can't even provide for your family, that you struggle to support yourself? But the church tells you it's okay. This is a noble thing because the love of money is the root of all evil. Great, but you need money. Do you not? You need to pay your bills. Do you not? The love of money could be the root of all evil. And to be quite frank, I don't even agree with that statement, because your heart is your heart and money is just a magnifying glass. Just like, alcohol is a magnifying glass. If you are a person who's holding on to a lot of hate and you start drinking, guess what's going to come out? All that hate. If you're a person who's full of a lot of love and you start drinking, guess what's going to come out? A lot of love. If you have a lot of money and you are filled with a lot of hate, guess what's going to come out? If you have a lot of money and you're filled with a lot of love, guess what's going to come out? Right? So to me, it's not to me, sorry, I'm getting over a sickness. I've been sick for the last 2 weeks, or maybe not the last 2 weeks. That's dramatic. Maybe the last 2 days, 3 days. But yeah, it's just understanding, and I'll close this pretty quick here. You people are the ones who are creating the holes in your spirit for the demons to come in, or for the dark energies to come in. You are the ones who are holding open the stronghold in your life, because you're refusing to shut the hole. You're refusing to let go of the pain that's creating that portal so that they can come in. Yeah. Whether you're refusing to forgive a church. Like me, I had to forgive my pastor, right? It was part of the forgiveness journey. Is at a certain point, I had church hurt. And I had to forgive my pastor. I had to forgive my church. I had to forgive my pastor's my pastor's ideology. I had to forgive the way my pastor abused my mother. I had to forgive the way my pastor treated his wife. The way that he was demeaning and openly kind of like, my pastor used to stand up and just do these ultimate power moves of like, no, like in front of the church, in front of the choir, in front of everybody. No, you will listen to me because I am the one who's in control. And whenever you would ask her about it later, she'd be like, no, yeah, that's right. I am sorry. I am the one who is stepping out of line. My husband is Almighty God. It's like, no, no, because God created Adam and Eve to be equal. Everybody in the Bible says, no, God created Adam and Eve, Eve from the rib of Adam. But I forgot what it was. I had done this was a long time ago, but I had done a whole bunch of research and all that kind of stuff. And there's multiple Genesises, if you would. Genesis is? There's multiple ways to view that. And at the end of the day, Well, my stance on Genesis is that we can't trust the book anyways, because it was written by Moses 2 to 3,000 years after the events. So when everybody is arguing on a word for word basis, the book of Genesis saying that it's all holy and pure, I'm arguing that no, it's not, because it was coming through a human who is contaminated. And so, the book of Genesis, although in the Christian stuff, the book of Genesis is holy and pure and perfect. No, I don't believe that. But, and a lot of Catholics don't believe that salvation is based off of faith alone. But yeah. So to just kind of wrap things up, I guess, because I don't want to make this, which it's appearing to be an hour video, just to wrap things up, if you truly want to seek God, if you truly want to be a light in your life, if you truly want to experience the kingdom of heaven, why is it that Jesus said that the kingdom of heaven, the children, I forget, I can't think of it right now, but essentially that, suffer not the little children to come to me, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, right? Why is it that Jesus saying is the children have the kingdom of heaven? Because the children will inevitably become adults, but the children have the kingdom of heaven. The adults don't have the kingdom of heaven. The children have the kingdom of heaven. So how is it that the children have the kingdom of heaven when they're alive? You're not supposed to experience the kingdom of heaven until you're dead, according to Christianity, right? Well, the reason is because adults can also experience the kingdom of heaven, but you have to return to your purity, right? You have to return to the pureness of your soul when you weren't addicted to porn, when you weren't holding on to all of your hate, when you hadn't experienced all that hate yet, when you weren't holding on to all of the things that pissed you off about your mother, about your father, about your friends from high school. I went on during my 1.5 years of forgiveness, I messaged just about everybody that I had abused, because I was, it's kind of trickle down economics, right? You have the abuser, and so if you get abused, immediately you want the power dynamic, you have to abuse somebody. And, I kind of went on a little forgiveness spree of, hey, I was extremely mean to you and I treated you like crap and I'm sorry. And I've messaged a bunch of people, and whenever people come to mind, I just message them and say, hey, I'm sorry. I was an idiot. I didn't know who I was, but yeah. So I'm going to leave this there. At this point, I've recorded a few different videos and I have some stuff I need to knock out before I go to bed and before tomorrow. And so I'm going to get right to that. But, when it does come to negative energies and dark energies and things like that, you are the one that creates that hole for them to come in. And stop praying to Jesus, asking Jesus to save you, and start doing the work to save yourself. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, your unforgiveness and your unwillingness to love, your unwillingness to see the beauty in someone, even though they're Democrat, even though they're Republican, even though they're an illegal immigrant, even though they're black, they're white, they're Hispanic, they're Asian, your unwillingness to see the beauty in them, your unwillingness to see the wholeness of God through them is what is creating your portals, is what is creating the potential for the darkness to come in. So, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm perfect, because I'm not. I have my own struggles and I have my own things that I work with too. Because at the end of the day, all we all want is just to return to God, is it not? So, okay, I'm out. I love you guys, and yeah, just wait for my next video because it's inevitably coming.